My name is Gary Parker. I'm the Director of CNT Associates. We are business support and fundraising organisation based in southeast London, and we do a lot of work around fundraising, writing bids, and a lot of associated areas. We're also running some webinars on various tech-related projects as well. We ran a very good and well-received webinar, myself and my colleague Sybil Mayard, on how to set up an online store using Shopify last week, and that went very well. I'm just waiting for a couple of our other speakers to join us now. They're just tuning in now, but I'll explain the running order. We'll start off with Steve Arnold from United Technologies Group, who is our sponsor, and Steve's going to tell you about how he developed his business. It's always an interesting story, and a number of other related things he's involved in. Then there'll be my presentation, which will be about 20 minutes, which will be the most boring bit, but the essential bit about sources of fundraising. And then after that, last but certainly not least, we've got Nick Donnelly from Continental Aspire Soccer, and followed by Rachel Barham from the Federation of Small Businesses. This is Steve Arnold, the Managing Director of United Technologies, who's going to brief you on a number of relevant issues related to technology and the services they provide. So over to you, Steve.
Yeah, so hello everyone, thanks Gary. I'm Steve Arnold from a company called UTL Group. I'm the MD here, and the company's been going for about 20 years, set up with my brother, and we provide a number of services through 4 different companies, which I'll go through in a minute. Just to give you a bit of background, yeah, we started up, myself and my brother, 20 years ago, just the 2 of us, a small startup, and we've grown by acquisition. So over the years, we've bought out a number of companies to grow, so about 10 in total, so 1 every couple of years on average, and that's how we built our company into a sort of multi-million-pound organisation it is today. I'm just going to quickly go through the companies that we've got and what we do in each company, and some of them are maybe relevant to stuff that you might do in the future or require. First of all, when we originally set up, we set up a document solutions company. So photocopiers, printers, scanners, we supplied them, serviced them, looked after them, and we also did related software. So print control software, you know, where you go in and tap your card, your door entry card on a machine, and allows you to print and release prints. We also, which is more relevant today, we got into doing document management solutions, which is archive and retrieval and workflow processes. At the moment, with everyone working from home, it's very difficult to push bits of documentation around when you don't know who's got it and what's happening to it. So there are softwares out there that can control all your documents and make sure that everyone is dealing with it in a process and you've got full visibility. And you know, never has that been more important than now during COVID. That's the document solutions. The next company we've got is a telecoms company, so UTL Telecom Solutions. In that we supply and support telephone systems, which predominantly these days are hosted phone systems, whereby you can have a handset or a mobile app or a soft phone, and you can be part of a phone system anywhere in the world. So you could have 10 people working in 10 different countries, and they'd all be part of exactly the same phone system, all getting completely free calls. Also with that, we do mobile phones, so we'll do mixed packages of handsets and mobiles, and any call management software that goes with that, plus your normal broadbands and fiber circuits. So you know, if you need broadbands or Ethernets, we get those installed and support them and have our own billing platform. The next company we've got is a data cabling company. That's UTL Cabling Solutions. So in that, we design and install all voice and data cabling, your Cat5, 6, 6A, your fibre. So if you can imagine everything where you plug in a PC, or you plug in a phone, or even you plug in CCTV, or even Wi-Fi points, they still need a data cable. And all that cabling goes back through your walls to a comms cabinet, and then links into a relevant bit of equipment that you need to run the services. So we put all that infrastructure in. And in that company, we also install Wi-Fi solutions, PA systems, and AV as well. The fourth company is a company called UTL Security Solutions. And in that, we supply and install CCTV, door entry systems, door access, gate entry. We do intruder alarms. And more recently, we bought a company out last year that does fire alarms and emergency lighting. So that's the full aspects of everything that we do in all the different companies. Because this is about sport here today, we obviously look after some sporting venues and sporting organisations. And one of the, I suppose, out of all the companies that we have, probably the biggest to do with that is the security solutions. So probably one big area is cameras, and there's been some developments in technology in cameras that has made some big impacts. The most prevalent at the moment you've probably seen is the temperature reading camera. So everywhere you go, you can go to places now, NHS, etc. You walk in without you even touching anything, doing anything. You walk through a barrier and it will take your temperature and check whether you're within the limits to be allowed in. And if you're not, it will block you from coming in. Combined with those temperature reading cameras, those cameras can also do facial recognition. So even when you're wearing a mask, it will be able to read your face. And if you're on the database has been allowed on that site, if it's a site or that building, then it will let you in. And if you're not, it will block you from coming in. It can even tell if you're not wearing a mask. It'll even set an alert off to say that you're not wearing a mask, you can't come in. So it can do that as well. Those cameras can also be linked to door access or turnstiles. So if it's buildings or some kind of access, they'll link in with an existing system or a new system so that they will block you coming in automatically, as well as doing alerts and alarms if someone goes through with the temperature, etc. There's also cameras that will do a variety of things, such as you've probably experienced them at supermarkets. They will do people counting. So a supermarket, you're only allowed in if there's, if it's reached a maximum in the supermarket, it won't let you in. So it will count how many people come in, how many people go out, and give people access. Those same sort of cameras have other facilities, which is sort of the latest development, which is artificial intelligence. So they can do people counting in a room and count how many people, all the number of people in a room. They can even check people's temperatures en masse in a room. They can also do things like if you've got a site and you want to assess someone who you think maybe a member of staff that you think might be stealing or something like that, they can monitor and track them over the last few weeks, whatever they've been doing. And you can get stats and see where they've been, what they've done, and get evidence if they've been doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. Those same cameras can also do things like aggression control, believe it or not. If they see an aggression happening, it could be staff, or it could be customers, etc. They can spot aggression and alert someone so that you can go and deal with it. Another big part of the camera technology is site protection. So if you've got a place that needs protecting all around perimeters, you don't want break-ins. You've got cameras that will go up to 800 meters now in line of sight protection. So they'll shine bright lights. They'll have a beam that, if broken, will set off alarms. You can have two-way audio, so someone can be monitoring it and they can shout an intruder saying, "We're monitoring you, get off." There's also things like alarms and red and blue flashing lights to warn people off, and bright lights that get rid of any dark areas around the perimeter and stop intruders coming in. That's on the cameras. One of the other areas I've found, not my speciality, but on the fire, something since taking over the company last year, we've found, probably since Grenfell really, a lot of regulation changes have happened in the fire, and we do fire alarms and emergency lighting. And people who've got fire alarms need to have them checked normally twice a year. And the biggie on this one is fire alarms. It's very important to get them checked and to do any remedials that need doing, because if you've got a fire alarm that hasn't had any changes in the last few years, it's probably not compliant. And obviously, if you're not compliant and something happens, you can really get in trouble. And that's not just your company, you can be personally liable for things that happen. So you really need to get that dealt with. That's about enough from me today. I'm going to pass back to Gary, but thanks for listening to me. If anyone's got any more questions, then leave it in the chat, or I'm going to put my details in the chat. You're welcome to call me and ask questions at any time. So thanks for your time, everyone. All back to Gary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And just for anybody who came in late, Steve is the sponsor for some of these webinars, which enables us to offer them for free. So thanks to Steve. We really appreciate your support. And just one plug for him. I bought a phone via UTL recently and a new SIM card, and I've halved my phone bill. So I'm very happy about that indeed, after being ripped off by a very big phone company for a long time. So thanks for that. Worth getting a quote. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a presentation for about 20 minutes, and we're going to look at some of the key issues. You can ask me questions afterwards, or put it in the chat, or contact me after the presentation. I put all my contact details, as have others. So I'm pleased to see we've got somebody from Bexley Council as well. Phil, if you want to make contact, I'm looking for other speakers for this programme. This is the first we've ever run on sports, and I'm pleased that we managed to get quite a few people online. So here we go. This is a PowerPoint presentation. As I said, this will last about 20 minutes. We'll be sending out a summary version of this directly afterwards, which is about 15 slides. If you want the full presentation, which is about 30 slides, it's available to buy from us for £12, including VAT. But as you'll see, it's very comprehensive. So that's me. I've been working in the full fundraising area for over 20 years, and we've raised over 30 million for the organisations that we've worked with. We've got an office here in London and one in the northwest of England. In terms of sources of funding, there are a number of areas that you can look at for sports funding. They are spread out a bit, and some of them are direct revenue generating, and we'll look at them very shortly. But basically, you've got central, regional and local government. Of course, I suspect that that funding source is going to be more limited in future, but we shall see. Then you've got a range of specialist sports funders, the lottery, of course, because there is some lottery money that goes via Sport England, we'll look at shortly. Crowdfunding, which a lot of sports clubs and organisations use to raise money, and they use various platforms. I'll talk about some of those later. And then you've got private sector funding and trusts and various non-profits. So there's a range of potential funding sources. If you're new to this and you want to know where to start, because often people find this a bit overwhelming, here are 5 sites to have a look at. Sport England, that is the main one. It's the kind of lottery equivalent of the sporting world. In England, at least, there's other organisations in the devolved nations, if you're from outside England today. And The next one is Funding Central. This is supported by the National Council for Voluntary Organisations. It is a free site that's got about 4,500 funding sources on it at any one time for any type of organisation, and even some for individuals. But the National Council for Voluntary Organisations who manage this are going to stop doing that at the end of March. So I'm not sure what's going to happen after that. So look at it while you still can. The next one is a regional sport, and in every English region there is a regional sports organisation. In London, where we're based, it's London Sport, and that's got a lot of useful information and access to funding opportunities from various funders. The next one is a platform called Grants Online, and there is a free and a pay element to this. They do have a sports and leisure section, which is very good. I use it myself. Then there's another one called Funding for All, which has, that's a regionally based one as well. That's got a very good sports section on it. So I'm going to go very briefly through some of the COVID-19 related slides first, just in case there are any of you who haven't claimed any money or have had difficulty, or your organisation or business is being closed down. Here are some of the links, and there are a number of discretionary funds as well out there. I've directed some people in sport to claim for these as their facilities are being closed. Many local authorities now have discretionary funds. If you look at your local authority's website, my local authority Bexley is bexley.gov.uk, and they just launched their discretionary funding program, the next round of it. So you may be eligible. You've got to check the terms and conditions, but all the links are on the first site from the government's business support and financial support during CV19 link that's there on the screen. Funding Central, I'd already mentioned that. You can do a customized search on that. It's only going to be there till the end of March. It's been around for about 10 years. Probably, I suspect, a new version of this will emerge from it, but we'll have to see. They've not launched it yet. They just said very recently that they're going to stop the current one. But that's the website address, and you can do a customized search and print out a report if you register for it. And again, that is free. To access funding in sport, there's a number of elements you can utilize, and the most successful organizations I've seen try and utilize all of these. Obviously, you've got grant funding. We're going to look at some more in a minute. Then you've got crowdfunding, which is a way of raising funds through people making contributions or donations to an online platform. Again, we'll look at that shortly. Then you've got appeals and donations, sales of merchandising, partnership working, which many sports organizations do, large and small, with the community or with schools or with local authorities and housing associations and many others. Again, it's a good way to develop facilities and projects. Ticket sales where appropriate and possible, events, and of course sponsorship. So there's a number of ways to do it, and that's what we try and work on here at C&T when we're working with our clients. We look at all of those and try and come up with a package that is the best and most effective and cost effective for that organization. So I'm going to now look at a range of, I'm just to show you the variety of things. We can't cover every area, but I'm going to show you a few funds out here. This has been updated very, very recently in the last couple of days. So some of the fonts are a bit strange, but it's the information that's important. One of them, this is a small one for smaller organizations, the Booth Charitable Trust. This is for disabled sport, amongst others, to support charities or non-profit making organizations. You get a £500 grant. And then you've got the Lord's Taverners charity, which does a lot of good work, particularly for younger people with learning and feasibilities, to adopt and buy minibuses Each minibus costs in the region of £61,000. So they give a lot of help and support to enable organisations to access equipment and facilities like this. And there's a couple of links about how they do it. Here are some other ones in other sports. This is the Dan Maskell Tennis Trust. Again, you can get up to £500 for equipment mainly, and support from a licensed coach, and a range of other facilities there. Groups can apply for a maximum of £1,500. And finally, the Bruce Wake Charitable Trust, because obviously, as you can imagine, there's a lot of charitable trusts out there that will support people. And in 2018, grants were made totaling over £600,000, and of these 40 were over £5,000. So again, until I started researching this, I'd never heard of this organisation. There are many charities out there that do good work like this. They just get on with giving the money out rather than spending a lot of money on publicity or promotion. They probably don't need to, because the need is so great. Here is some funds or potential funds for some women-led sports. We'll start off with netball. Again, England netball, and probably Sport England do some work around this as well. Another source is the Government Grants Hub, which has a range of potential funding sources. That's not exclusive to women's sports or women-led sports. Any organisation can look at that, and the Government Grants Hub is another good website that I would recommend, and there is a link there for you on that. Here is another one, the Headley Foundation. Again, it's designed to help improve the lives of young people, which is, as we all know, is very difficult at the moment. And they support a range of organisations and projects. Grants average around about £3,000, but no maximum grant is stipulated. In other words, what that means is if they really like a project and want to get behind it, they will fund it to a much higher level. But that's, they're registered charities, so it's down to their individual discretion as to how far they want to go on that. Here are another couple of links. The Women's Sports Trust, founded in 2012. This is about using sport to promote social change and to accelerate gender equality and stimulate social change. So that's a very interesting site, and there's lots of links to other projects and sites. And then there are grants for women's football funded by Sport England and the Football Association, because as we know, in the last couple of years, that's really taken off. And as soon as the pandemic ends, no doubt it will expand even more. And the coverage of it has significantly expanded as well. So a good couple of links there. Here is another organisation called the Fredericks Foundation. This will fund basically any woman-led project, including sports projects. They've got, this is a loan fund though, unlike all the others I've mentioned so far, which were grant funding. This is a loan fund, and you can get loans of, even as a startup, up to £35,000, starting at £15,000, and then they provide some additional support. The Fredericks Foundation is probably best known for supporting community pubs, actually, but they provide a range of support in other areas, and this has been one of their big initiatives in the last few years to support and develop this loan fund for women-led projects. We'll move on. In London, because the majority of people on here today are London-based, you've got a range of funders, particularly the Greater London Authority. They've got a number of initiatives, but they work closely with London Sport that I'd mentioned earlier, which is a regional sports organisation. And then, of course, You've got the London Marathon Charitable Trust, which funds a wide range of sports activities, not just in London, but throughout the UK. But it's a big money generator, obviously, via the marathon and a number of other initiatives. There are a lot of charitable trusts out there. We're just scratching the surface here, because many sports projects can work in other areas as well. For example, around well-being, or around education, or around disability, or around gender equality and support for BAME groups as well, as we've seen. So where do you get this information from? Probably the best one on this slide is trustfunding.org.uk. That is a pay site from the Directorate of Social Change. Funding Central, I've already mentioned. There are others as well, which I'm going to mention shortly. But just to let you know, the good news is charitable trusts are still giving out, even during the pandemic, even during times we've got currently, £4 to £5 billion a year. Many of these have been going for many years and have got significant financial resources. Again, there are a lot of them, so you need to check various sites out. We're going to look at a few others now. Here are some of the private sector ones, many banks and others. I think Barclays have been funding some sports related activities, and various other ones. Virgin, Cadbury, Body Shop, a whole range of these have their own charitable trusts. Where do you get information on this? Again, probably the best site there is companygiving.org. That is a pay site, but it's got access to a wide range of information. And then finally at the bottom, you've got Business in the Community, which was started up by Prince Charles many years ago, and is still continuing to do a lot of good work matching up businesses and charities. So let's move on. Central, regional and local government funding. I've already mentioned the funding centres, so I won't mention them again. And then you've got the Government Grants Hub, which again is a good site. And then there's a range of others on that site. The coronavirus links are a good link into many of the funding links at the moment, and a whole range of others, which we're going to mention very shortly. So we're just going to get down to the next one. Funding for football. Here is a big area. You've got the Football Foundation that has a range of grants and information. The Amateur Football Association, where you've not got direct funding, they've usually got links into others that have, but you do have to check these sites regularly because they change a lot, believe you me. Funding for All is a more generic website, but they do have a good section on sport, and particularly on football. Then you've got the Premier League Charitable Trust, on which there's a range of information and opportunities. The thing about Premier League Trust, though, it works through clubs, usually obviously the Premier League, but also others. It's more difficult to get direct funding from them unless you've got direct links with football clubs, which some of you may have, or you work with another organisation like a local authority or a housing association that might do it as well. Move on now. Here's another one. Here's funding for swimming. You've got a number of organisations. You've got the Swimmathon Foundation, and of course you've got Sport England, and then there's another funder which again doesn't fund just swimming, but it has done a lot for swimming. It's called Cash for Clubs. It's not funding at the moment, but it will fund any type of club activity, really, sports club activity. So check that website there. and get on the mailing list for it, because they have facilitated some significant funding for, especially for small sports clubs. Here's rugby now. Of course, we've got the Six Nations on at the moment, so this is very much in vogue. There are some quite interesting funding streams around rugby. Again, some of them will fund other sports or facilities like changing rooms or clubhouses, as long as rugby related clubs and organisations are allowed to utilise them as well, but you can do it with other sports too. And the England Rugby do a direct range of funding opportunities. Then, of course, you've got Sport England, sportengland.org, which is one of the main go-to websites I mentioned at the beginning. And then you've got Rugby League. And then, of course, you've got the National Lottery. Most National Lottery funding tends to be channeled through Sport England and other sports-related organisations. But if you're doing something around well-being, for example, or disability, you may be able to bid directly to the lottery, but you need some advice on that. This is another one, because I was asked about this recently. Does any personal trainers here? There's a range of potential grants for individuals. A very good site is called turntous.org.uk, and then organisations like the City and Guilds provide some funding, and then there's some crowdfunding sites which I'm going to talk about very, very soon. So I won't mention that now. The other that's worth mentioning is the Prince's Trust. That was set up by Prince Charles 20 years ago, and they provide loans and grant funding for young people under the age of 30 to set up their own business. And they've got a program called Train and Learn as well, which is a really excellent program. All of those, if you're an individual sports person or trainer, are probably worth checking out, because there may well be something for you, particularly if you're under 30. But if you're not under 30, there's some other things through Turn to Us and City and Guilds and some others as well. Crowdfunding. I'm going to mention this briefly because this is becoming an increasingly important sports funder. Crowdfunding is basically developing a platform and working with specific communities or organizations. You pledge money as an individual or organization. You put your project online and ask people to contribute to it. You don't get charged up front. What the platform will charge you, although there are some free ones around these days, is generally between 4 and 9% of what is raised, because all the pledges are made to their site, so they've got the money, and when your project time limit is finished, it's usually around about 60 days. It can be longer, indeed it can be shorter. Then you will get the funding minus the commission. But there are some issues around crowdfunding, around things called stretch targets. So you're better to have a low target and overshoot that, rather than have a high target which is not reached, and you may not get any of the funding off it. So I can advise about that if you want information on that. But the key thing you have to do is drive traffic towards the Pledger website, whoever it is. Here are two of the biggest ones: crowdfunder.co.uk and Kickstarter, which is an American one, which is the biggest in the world, which was originally started off for arts, sports and leisure, but it covers other areas now. Crowdfunder will cover any areas. That's probably the biggest British one. So if you're interested in crowdfunding, do check out those sites first and get some advice, whether it's online or from another source, or indeed from us if you want it. I'm going to give you a couple of very brief crowdfunding case studies. This is from an organisation called the Bury Broncos Rugby Club. They wanted to expand their facilities, and they chose to crowdfund rather than go looking for grants. What they said about this was quite interesting. There's a lot of community support for the club, but that doesn't automatically convert into giving money. People seem to have a what's in it for me attitude about giving money, so we're going to do another bid. We would raise the stakes on the rewards, because you can offer people rewards with crowdfunding. You could offer them, if you're a sports club, you can offer them free tickets, t-shirts, access to facilities, anything you like, really. But you can do that. You can't offer people money, obviously, because you're trying to raise money, but you can raise funding through offering people rewards. Here's another one, the Twickenham Alive Ice Rink. They said they had a £5,000 target, that they managed to hit it. They had to work very hard to make it happen. But they also said the money raised was crucial. That was a small percentage of the 200,000 we needed in total. We couldn't have opened the rink without it. So, you know, there's two grassroots organisations that succeeded, but they did have to do some work to get it. Here's the programme I mentioned a bit earlier, the Parentheses Fund. This is a £5 million enterprise relief fund programme that offers grants to 18 to 30-year-olds. This is demand-led, so you need to check the website, but it does fund 18 to 30-year-olds. This is what they now call, they were regional sports hubs, but they're now called active partnerships. There are 42 partnerships in England, and they coordinate and manage a range of sports projects. You need to check in your individual region, but I've given 3 here. There's the London one, London Sport. If you're in Kent, which is very close to here, you've got kentsport.org. And in Manchester, you've got greatersport.co.uk. If you go to the link at the top, you'll get the details of, if you're from another region, you will get the links from that, and they're worth checking out because they all have potential funding streams attached to them as well. So those partnerships are very important and will become, you know, this is part of the government strategy and will become even more important in terms of sports development. We're going to look now very briefly at funding for Black, Asian and minority ethnic-led projects and organisations. I've already mentioned one of these, Cash for Clubs. Sport England is trying to do more in this area to support minority-led organisations and projects. And here's a couple of other ones. There's a good site is Sporting Equals, which is an information and policy site. And then you've got Funding for Sport, which is a good site to look for funding opportunities for any type of organisation. Then another one called Go Raise for Community, which has a very good blog site as well, which has a lot of great information on it. So I would advise, well, anybody to look at that, but they've done quite a lot of work recently around the BAME-led agenda for sport. Here's a couple of other ones. The Sport England Major Event Volunteer Fund, again, which is funding a range of volunteer-led activities. Other organisations can apply for this as well. And then the Football Foundation has a programme to develop facilities, and they have a number of strands to that as well, including one for BAME projects. This is a good and interesting source of funding, a national source, the Entrepreneur's Handbook, which has everything you need about developing a business, and it also has 60 pages of grant funding throughout the UK to support a business, well, it's any business, including sports businesses. So I would really recommend that. and is worth checking out, whether you're looking for business support or whether you're looking for funding. I'm going to end with a couple of case studies just to show you what can be done. Portsmouth Football Club completed the largest football crowdfunding project in the UK in 2015 when it raised £270,000 to build a new academy. They did it in a kind of textbook way, including getting the backing of a major sports personality. And though they do say on crowdfunding is an tap which can be turned on and off. So you have to use it quite sparingly and as part of a strategy. But that was quite a large amount of money. And this is a rugby club example. But again, some of this money was raised via Sport England and various other related strands. They had a 3/4 size training pitch on land, currently untouched. So they built an extension to the current clubhouse and paved and repaved 2 sides of it. They got a funding application in which contributed £45,000 towards the cost of this work. And the other thing I should also mention on this, there are some funders out there that will match fund what you raise, and there are some Sport England programs that do that. So if, like this organization, you raised 45k, they may well have been able to match fund that as well, even if it's from other grant funding sources, as long as it's not from them, of course. If it's from other grant funding sources, that is still counted as match funding, as indeed is any private sector funding as well. So that's it. I'm going to stop the share in a moment. If you want more information, we've got this fundraising pack here, and you can get this from us. So thank you very much for listening to us, and that is the fundraising guide that you'll get details about in an email we're going to send out to you after this. Does anybody want to ask me any quick questions? Can't see anybody at the moment. We'll put it in the chat or email me afterwards. So I'm now going to hand over to Nick Donnelly from Continental Aspire Soccer, and thanks for coming on today, Nick. Nick's the managing director and self-confessed Belfast legend. So over to you, Nick.
Hey, how you doing? Hey everyone, how you doing? Just a bit of my background. Obviously, I've come from a family that's very big in the business community. Obviously in Northern Ireland. Obviously, like I say, my grandfather, he was obviously in the whiskey merchants business. My family we were majority shareholders in Vice Fruit, the largest exporter of fruit in Europe. We also, my grandfather was also a majority shareholder at Glasgow Celtic, up about 10 years before his death, which was the late 1940s. And then myself, obviously, I went on to play. Obviously, I came through the ranks at Manchester United when I was younger, and then ultimately ended up getting a bad injury and had to leave as a result of the troubles. And then from there, ended up obviously going to America. I was offered a professional contract at DC United in the MLS, but ended up getting injured. So upon that, went into coaching. Went into coaching because I wanted to understand coaching. I wanted to understand recruitment. I wanted to understand the football as a business, not just one area. And so ultimately went in. So I've learned the administrative side. I've learned recruitment, the coaching aspect, business structures, obviously marketing. But like I said, it's a continual journey. So as a result, obviously also worked for Nike. I lived in the States for about 10 years. So I worked with Nike, and I was based in Chicago. So I pretty much managed all of their. They did a big deal with Sports Authority worth just under $1 billion. So I managed a lot of that project. Then obviously came back, obviously, and that's when I obviously worked in recruitment with Manchester United, representing, obviously looked after Northern Ireland. So I worked under like guys like Jerry Armstrong, and I ran the south, he ran the north, and we kind of shared the Midlands as well. And from there, obviously, in terms of my football career, obviously ran a pretty good soccer school, but I didn't want to stay in that. I kind of wanted to progress a little bit more. So as a result, up to now, obviously I'm looking at various, very similar to Steve, looking at a lot of clubs. So I'm looking around the non-league circles. Non-league in England is quite strong. It's a good place, but they're just poorly run. They're poorly run businesses. The way they're obviously acquired, obviously I've had experience in trying to acquire two, but I've been unsuccessful in those, just due to obviously what I felt was in terms of the value, what value I felt they were kind of worth. And so now I'm kind of on my third one, which is down near Portsmouth. So decided to get out of London and look around there, based upon the market, the data, and ultimately looking to develop that. So Continental Aspire Soccer, we obviously got a hub that we want to launch in Florida. So we've got a school that's hopefully going to launch there by September 2022. And as a result, also utilizing the assets. So for example, we obviously want to acquire a non-league club. At the minute, that's kind of one of our main focuses, but also providing educational opportunities. But we also run a media channel, which you can actually check us out on YouTube. But we've also since moved it to Spotify, where I interview. So, for example, this week I'm interviewing the son of Jan Fjørtoft, who played for Eintracht Frankfurt, played for Norway. So I'm interviewing his son and we're going to be talking about politics and football and how they connect. So I have different audiences, not just kids that want to become professional footballers, but also we also interview journalists who can actually educate. So it's a mix between education and entertainment. So the media side is definitely important. So we're kind of looking to obviously develop that. And some of the funding that we're looking at the minute is with for example, the non-league club that we're looking at. We want to obviously get that funded. We're just in the process of trying to deal with the acquisition, which I think is going to end up being literally next to nothing. So that's obviously going to be interesting. But at the end of the day, we obviously want to. It's going to the non-league club we're looking at. It's going to need a lot of funding from facilities to. So that's kind of where I've kind of come to know Gary and come to know CNT, understand the different aspects of funding, especially a project like this, because the club is on council land. The council typically want to give somebody. They want to get it back. So if you ever give up the club, literally you're giving them back economical value, but also from a community perspective, you're also doing the same thing. But the goal is to get it to a point using all my experience over the last 20 years. And obviously I've worked and been developed. I was developed by Johan Cruyff for 2 years. So I feel like I've learned from some of the best people in the industry to be equipped to be obviously very successful. And so in terms of that, but so pretty much any so encouragement to any sporting organization that I would definitely give would definitely be literally I suppose discern where you want to be. Understand what it is you're actually good at, be clear in your objective that obviously you want to achieve. My goal is, like I say, is utilizing grassroots and the non-league, because I think once you start to go up near, like, for example, the Football League or anything, the expenses do go up. So it's an area that I'm not wishing to go near, because I think once you go into the Football League, it starts to get very, very expensive. And so I think that understand the economics of where you are, understanding kind of what's available. Also relying on organizations like CNT, I think is very, very valuable. And then, so I think that's definitely what I definitely would recommend. But I know also, I think acquisitions, if you really want to go to the next level, I think that's the key. I think Steve Arnold kind of hit on that at the beginning, which I couldn't agree more with. I think that's totally spot on. And so that's kind of a direction at CAS, Continental Aspire Soccer. That's our goal in terms of identifying. But like I say, we're in the very beginning stages of that. We're just kind of, we're kind of on step one at the minute. So trying to get things to that point. But like I say, if anybody does have any questions or about that, they can reach out to me. I'm always more than willing to, give anybody any input that I can. But also, you'll also get a lot of expertise based upon the people we interview. We interview a lot of people across the football industry. So anybody in that space, I'm definitely more than willing to have any conversations with you guys. You can just reach out at www.continentalaspiresoccer.com, or you can reach out to us on socials, LinkedIn, myself, or obviously on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We're pretty busy there. Yeah. So that's everything. But if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. If you put your website address or any of the contact details in the chat, then people can get that, if you don't mind. Anybody got any questions for Nick? Right, Nick, I've got a question.
Go for it.
Obviously, grassroots sport at the moment is under a lot of challenges. We know what they are, so I'm not going to repeat them. Do you think it's got a future? And if it has got a future, what are the things that you've learned recently about the potential way forward?
Well, I think where grassroots are, people are just talking about the problems, like what you just said, but they're not talking about what the solutions are. And I think that where I kind of think grassroots is, it has to be much more of a community focus, because at the end of the day, I mean, if I think where, I suppose what I went through, we had really great community leaders, but also I think also professional clubs. I think you're definitely going to see, I think that's what UEFA is trying to do. They're trying to, they're putting more emphasis on clubs to literally actually let the money drip through. But it's also going to be very, very difficult to do that. So I think if they're run properly, I think they're going to need to start to run them more like a business. Grassroots clubs, they need to work as if a non-league club would work. If you think about a non-league club, like one of the clubs I'm looking at, the sponsorship they can bring in per year is 200,000 to 300,000. You know what I mean? So if you're able to do a lot of initiatives, I think that's definitely the key. You know what I mean? So because if you look at like their overheads, so I think a lot of those clubs are going to have to get very creative. They got to look at the resources they have. But the problem is most of the people in these clubs are not doing that, and they're not being educated on how to do it. So I think that's also where one of the biggest challenges are. Definitely moving forward. Yeah, I think look at the resources you have and move forward with that.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very, very interesting point, and we've discussed this before. But that's a good take on it. So when we develop this a bit more, I might get Nick back again, perhaps with a bit more time and more of a brief, because this is the first one we've done on sport, and I just didn't want it to be just a list of websites and other material, as important as that is. So it's always great. If anybody else, incidentally, who is on today, or anybody else wants to speak, maybe Phil, you're from Bexley, the local authority, you want to come and tell us what Bexley's doing at the moment, we'd be just send me an email. My details are in the chat. Finally, because this has been a very male-dominated session, which is not certainly always the case. So last but certainly not least, we've got Rachel Barham from the Federation of Small Businesses, and thank you for your persistence, Rachel. Talking in between Nick and myself is always, and probably Steve as well, is always a hard job. So to get a word in. So over to you.
No, thank you, Gary. And I apologise because I do have a 3 o'clock, so I am going to fly through this, but I'm just going to share my screen with you because I've got a few slides. For any of you that haven't heard of FSB, it stands for the Federation of Small Businesses. We're a not-for-profit organisation that lobby and campaign on behalf of the self-employed and small business owners in the UK. So it doesn't matter what type of business you've got, we are fighting for you. If you have a look on the website, fsb.org.uk, there's loads of useful information. There's ideas of what we're campaigning on at the minute. It doesn't talk about everything because there's so much that we're doing. But we hold absolutely loads of networking events. There's a skills hub to give you ideas for if you've moved your business online and aren't used to doing it, which I imagine for a lot of sports businesses, you're probably not. But it doesn't mean that you can't. So there's information out there for you. We also, for our members, have absolutely loads of benefits that come with membership. I'm going to run through a couple of them very quickly for you because trust me, when I get talking, I am worse than Gary and Nick because I absolutely love FSB and what it stands for. So I get all excited and I forget to breathe. So I'll talk about a few of them, but there's a snapshot of it anyway. The main one that I think is relevant to everybody is the legal support that we give you. We give our members free business legal advice 24/7, 365 days a year. So whether you've just got a question that you think you know, but don't want to pay a solicitor to confirm it, or whether it's actually you've got a legal issue going on within your business and you need to seek advice, you can pick up the phone to the legal helpline at any point and get that answered. Linked to it, we've also got what's called the Legal Hub, and on there you've got access to about 1,100 documents that you might need as a small business owner. Now, typically, I know I've got quite a few members that are in sort of sports related businesses, and you don't always think about all of the documents that you should have. But there'll be things like contracts, terms and conditions, subcontractor agreements, privacy policies if you've got websites, or information on data if you're holding people's personal details. There's absolutely loads on there and it's free for you. Yes, they're generic, but you can also get them tailored by using the legal helpline, or we can also help you do it, but they would charge you for things like that, but at preferential rates, because it's all about saving you money, protecting you, and giving the support you need, especially as a small business, because you don't typically have it there all the time. That just gives you an idea of what the Legal Hub looks like. So it gives you an idea of some of the categories that are on there and the types of documents that you would find within it. Some of the ones that I've mentioned already, because I think they're more relevant to your industry, are trading and contracts, because it doesn't matter who you're working with, you should have some kind of contract in place because you want to protect yourselves. Health and safety, because obviously if it's sports, you need to be aware of current legislations and what's going on there. But then also, particularly at the minute, coronavirus and what you should be doing to protect yourselves and your clients, customers, etc. Big one, just purely because of the time of year, we give you free tax investigation protection, which I know for a lot of small businesses, they don't necessarily see the need for this, but accountants will try and sell it to you. It is a worthwhile protection policy, because if the HMRC decides to investigate you, it can cost you quite a lot of money to prove that you didn't owe them the money in the first place. So we will give you an insurance policy for free to protect you, so you don't have to worry. And the good thing about that is we're used to doing all of these sorts of things. We're used to arguing with the tax office. We don't care. We will do it on your behalf to make sure that you're protected. A typical tax investigation protection policy is normally more than the cost of our annual membership as well. So it's actually cheaper to become a member and get this for free than then join afterwards and still have to pay your accountant for it. Insurances, typically in business, a lot of insurances aren't necessarily legal requirements, especially in sports. You should be looking at what you've got. We can give you a free insurance health check. We can help you understand what you should have as a business. We can also act as a broker for you and see if we can get it cheaper for you. regardless of whether you take insurance with us or not, you can also use us as an insurance advice line and seek the advice and support that you might need. And business banking, we've partnered with the co-op, so they won't charge our members monthly fees, transactional fees, and you can even put up to £2,000 cash in free per month, because most business bank accounts, you blink and they charge you. The co-op won't. So it's an option there for members as well. Who can join? Anyone, whether you're self-employed, limited company, partnership. Basically, the only one that you can't join as is a PLC. 0 employees, up to 249. And that's across multiple businesses as well. Membership is personal, so if we protect you, it protects your business. And there's also an additional type of membership that if you are in a partnership, there's a cheaper version, I suppose, to protect your partners. The question that everybody always asks, how much is it? It's always the important bit, money. Typically, it starts from £177 for the first year. That includes a registration fee, which for February and for sports businesses, to help you and to get you going in the right direction, I will waive the registration fee. So that saves you £30. So it'll be £147 for the first year, based on 0 employees, and then it goes up in brackets depending how many you've got. But for example, 1 to 4 employees would then be £199. I've put my contact details there, but I've also put them in the chat as well to make it easy to get in contact. More than happy to have a chat with you, talk through your business, what you do, how it will benefit you. And then if it's right for you, brilliant, I can get you joined up. If it's not, there's no pressure. We are there to support you, help you, but also give you a voice, especially in the current climate. Okay, so if you've got any questions, I say fire them very quickly, because unfortunately I am going to have to leave, but otherwise drop me a message at any point and hopefully we can have a chat and I'll see how I can help you. There you go, Gary.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Rachel. And to the point, as always. If anybody's got any very quick questions for Rachel, because I know there's quite a few FSB members on this today. Can't see any. Okay, you can, Rachel's details are in the chat if you want to follow that up afterwards. But anybody who doesn't know how to do it, there's 3 dots in the chat. You just click that and save it, and then you'll have everybody's contact details. So we've it's 3 minutes past 3, but we've had 4 speakers today, so thank you to all of them, and I very much appreciate you coming on to this today. If anybody wants to speak on this forum, then they'd be more than welcome to do so. And please keep in touch, because we want to help you with advice and support, as well as obviously develop our networks and business. So we're more than happy, and I know a few of you have already connected today, which is good, and I think we'll be able to do more of this. So thank you for this, and this will be we'll probably come back with this in about a month's time, a month to 6 weeks time, with new speakers and new information. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. If you want more information about what we do, my details are in the chat, or you look on our website, cntassociates.com. We will be sending straight after this a 15-slide summary of this out to you. If you want the full presentation, it's £10 plus VAT, so that's £12. All the details of how to access this will be in the email we send out very, very shortly. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you all again soon. And thank you for your support.